But it says some issue. Let me try again. Yes, I guess we live. Hey, Freight Fam. Welcome back to your Bestie in Freight, the podcast where we get into the grit, grind, and greatness of the supply chain world. I'm your host, Lida, and today's guest is someone who has been redefining what it means to move freight, build community, and create serious buzz. He's a connector, a creator, and networker, the founder of Supply Chani and Supply Chain Social Club. Please welcome Nathan. Thank you so much for joining
hmm
our second episode today together.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, second one today. We did a fun little podcast swap today. So, getting to catch up and get to know more about you. I like to say with cameras and microphones on. So, lots of fun.
Yep. Yes, so Nathan didn't do live, but it is gonna be uploaded very soon. But I wanted to do it live because I feel like, it is more exciting and, of course, a little bit more nervous, maybe I would say, but it's
hmm
fine. So, Nathan, I'm very happy you are here and you have got your hands in consulting, logistics, media, marketing, and somehow you still have time to throw the best networking parties in the virtual world. So let's get into it. What was a light bulb moment when you realized that we need this, social club
Uh-huh.
and how you end up with the name and tell me more about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. I guess the name for Supply Chain itself for the company that was a couple of years ago. After about the time I was starting my freight brokerage business and coming up with a name for a business. Right, everyone has to come up with the name for their company, and I was brainstorming on it and. The concept and the idea that my last name was Cheney kind of popped into my mind, and then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I honestly I don't know, right? I don't know what magical light bulb went off somewhere, but somehow it just dawned on me that I'm a
You
supply
connected
chain
your last
guy.
name and
My
supply
last name
chain.
is Cheney, and so it was just like, and the funny thing is, and maybe you can relate to this, is the first time I said it out loud, it sounded weird. It's kind of like the first times for people that hear their own voice and they don't like the sound of their voice, talking. You and I, we don't have that problem because we're podcast folks. We're very used to our voice, right? But that's how it sounded the first times I said supply chaining. I was like, oh, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't make sense. And so as a lot of entrepreneurs would do, you go and you ask your mentors and your friends and your family for their thoughts, right? And everyone said, that's genius. Like how that's the best name you could possibly come up with, right? But to me, it sounded odd at first. So it took some time to get used to saying it and thinking that this is a real thing, right? And my name is in it, right? And so as I was going to build, like for example, a podcast, right? I was trying to come up with creative names to come up with it, and I had like pitch please and all these other sort of fun names for it. But everyone that I asked, everyone said you just need to call it the Supply Chainy Podcast. Like keep working the brand, keep driving that name because it's a gold mine, right? You got to keep growing that. So I kind of just listened to folks, right? Um,
Yeah.
but specifically on the Supply Chain Social Club, of course, I had the opportunity to call it the Supply Chainy Social Club also.
Yes.
But I wanted to make it a little bit less about me and my brand and my company, and I wanted to make it a little bit more open and generic for the industry in general. And I, at some point, you kind of just I don't want to call everything supply chainy, right? So it's one of those times that I made kind of the executive decision to go with just supply chain, the normal version. But what inspired me was during COVID, and as you kind of just brought up on our podcast swap, COVID changed things and it inspired people and it revealed opportunities and gaps in the marketplace. And what I realized is that everyone was very comfortable getting to know each other and meeting and making connections virtually because we had to during COVID, right? And so there was lots of virtual networking events on Zoom and Teams, all that sort of stuff happening. And then when COVID kind of ended, everyone went back to, I like to say, hugging and kissing and being back in person again, right? And all of these virtual concepts for meeting people kind of got put back on the shelf. And as I've been trying to grow the concept of supply chainy, I've been doing lots and lots of virtual meetings, one-on-ones on Google Meets and that sort of thing. And I realized that that was naturally where so many conversations went over and over and over and over. It was always, do you want to send your Calendly invite or should I send mine? That's always where the conversation went, right? After a few DMs. So I thought, what if I just fast forward, hit the fast forward button on this, and I go grab one of those virtual networking platforms, like what was used in COVID times, and has kind of fallen away a little bit now, and revive it and bring it back and give it a name and give it a purpose. And because I do travel and I do attend lots of in-person networking events, lots of conferences and seminars and symposiums, and that's really awesome. Like it's great to meet people in person, shake hands, read body language, look them eye to eye, right? But not everyone has the time to be able to go to those kinds of events so much. Not everyone has the funds to be able to afford to go travel to them. And then sometimes people are just they don't live anywhere near those kinds of opportunities, or life just doesn't afford them the opportunity. They've got kids in soccer practice and dance club, and there's just life is just too busy to be able to make that sacrifice for those opportunities. So I wanted to create a digital version, a virtual version of those opportunities so that it was more accessible by everybody. And so that was really kind of the genesis of the idea for Supply Chain Social Club.
I like it. Yes, of course, we cannot travel all the time, but we have this online presence and links and platforms to connect. So, it is important to do both.
Yeah.
And this is amazing what you are doing. I have to actually join yet because I didn't have opportunity to join. It is like sometimes interrupts with my kids' schedule, but I would definitely try to join for the next one. And as far as your name, I really like it. And can I be honest? When I was doing research, I thought it is a spelling mistake or
Uh-huh.
something. Then I saw that your last name paid attention like more because when you read supply chain, you just supply, you already think that it is supply chain, right?
Right,
So
right.
now I realize that you have the similar last name, which is amazing. So it means like you are meant to be. How like in all times on Bible, sometimes they will name the kids like for the purpose they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brave, right? Firstborn. They have like that type of name. So maybe this is your purpose.
That's funny. It's funny that you say that because I've actually, uh, I sometimes I let people say that and I just let them continue on with the concept. But sometimes I will actually interject that Cheney is not my born name. It's not my actual original last name.
Okay.
My actual last name is Gonzalez when I was born, and so I was kind of legally adopted later on in life and changed the last name. So to be honest, I was not born to be Supply Cheney, right? I was legally adopted through the court system to be Supply Cheney. But it's fun. I think it's a good example of taking what you're given in life, the struggles, the opportunities, and making the best out of them, right? Crafting them to your own vision. So,
I like it. But yes, you had an opportunity to get a second name. So that's amazing.
mhm.
So you have built a media forward logistics brand. Why did you decide content was essential for supply chain space?
That's an awesome question. I love it. So, well, I think that we are maybe in that cohort of folks in the business world that have grown up with media and photography and Facebook and videos and social media. And I think that we're kind of in that wave. The wave has already started. We're kind of like at the top of the wave right now. I think that the more engaging you can be in your marketing efforts and in your communication efforts, the better. The concept that a picture says 1,000 words, right? So whenever you went from like 140 characters in a Twitter tweet sort of thing. Like there's not much that you can express and share in that short amount of time and text. But when you add a picture, okay, now you're like 1,000 words, right? That you're communicating. Now, if you want to 100x the impact of your message, now bring video into it, right? It's a series of pictures, 30 frames per minute or 60 frames per minute. So you can communicate so much more because there's audio, now there's body movement and body language, and you can really drive who you are as a person or as a brand, as a personality, and communicate much more in a short or a long time, format to your audience to just kind of grow people's understanding of what you do and what you stand for. So that was the funny thing here is I started with YouTube videos, and my idea was, in these professional industry events that I participate in, there's a lot of tours that go. They take tours of warehouses, tours of factories and manufacturing facilities, to allow supply chain professionals to see behind the curtain, see behind the scenes of how things occur. But again, not everyone has the opportunity to go see and participate in those tours, you know? So I was like, my idea was like, I can buy a camera, I can go get access to these things. I'll go and record tours, and do like a MTV Cribs slash like how it's made type of videos to show people through YouTube, from the comfort of their phone on their couch at home, how logistics kind of works in the background, right? And that so I had to learn like video editing and video shooting a little bit, and so I had to go study and learn how to do that a little bit. But quickly realized that I wasn't getting a lot of traction, and that around that time I started following folks, like Supply Chain Now and Kevin Lawton and Let's Talk Supply Chain, and other like sort of podcast influencers in the industry, and I realized very few of them had YouTube channels that were successful and getting very much engagement. They all had podcasts. So I was like, oh, well, I always thought I wasn't going to be a podcaster. I always thought I'm going to do video. But what I realized is that podcasting it's not the silver bullet that solves everything. I think it's like one tool in your toolbox, right? As a social media person. But it's much easier to do the editing and the recording for a podcast than it is a live in-person event. So what I think I've seen is like so many people start with podcasts that have no video, right? It's just audio, the original type podcast, and then they turn on cameras and they add the video, and then from there, then they start maybe doing the YouTube videos with editing and transitions and live. And I went backwards. And so I've always kind of had this idea that I'm going to always be a video first type of person, of communicator, because there's just so much story that you can share in video.
It is so funny you say that because I had the same experience. I was wanting to do YouTube, and I even mentioned in your podcast that
Hmm.
I opened it, I deleted it, but this year I think God called me to use my voice, and I feel like podcast is more authentic, and it is a great way to connect in real life with people, even remotely, but like we can exchange energies, we can see each other, we can talk. So I think this is a great way to build relationship rather than just like sitting on your own and talking to camera, right? So I
It's
think
actually hard. Did you ever do any podcasts where you're just talking to a camera, recording alone with
I
nobody on the other
I do
side?
YouTube, but I do use teleprompter, but I know it is hard. That was a main reason that I deleted my first two YouTube channels because I was not confident and I
Hmm.
couldn't like talk the way I want. And finally, I found out the teleprompter that works for me. So
Uh-huh.
I'm using it to, feel like more ease because it gets anxiety when you cannot like talk the way you want, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. So you help brands not only move right but tell their story. So why do you think marketing is overlooked superpower in this industry? Even though we think that there are a lot of companies that market themselves, but there are not a lot. There are 15,000 freight brokerages in
Uh-huh.
America, and I don't see 15,000 different brokerage posts. I just see maybe like 10, 15.
Hmm. Hmm.
What do you think?
Well, That's a really good question and a great statistic, I guess, to kick it off with, right? Um, the model that I'm trying to follow is, and you can probably tell if you look at what I'm doing, is I'm trying to be much more than just a broker. I'm trying to bring lots and lots of value, not only to just the general industry, but to clients as well. And the mission statement that I've set for supply chain is to be a creative, connected, and capable supply chain resource. And I try to leave it like high level because
Mm-hmm.
delivering on that mission looks like a lot of different things, right? But I think that for marketing and in terms of brokerages, it's kind of how can they differentiate themselves, and then communicate how they're different than the other 14,999 brokerages that are out there, right? So I think a lot of that from a marketing perspective, if you kind of just go down and you ask ChatGPT or you look on YouTube, like how do you create a brand and how do you run and set a marketing strategy for a company? Probably, well, I don't know exactly, but probably one of the first things is like, what is your mission? What is your goal? What is your vision statement, sort of? And that I think creates the foundation. And I think that it takes time to figure out what is different about you, your approach to business, the people on your team, the way you operate, the way you think, and then how and you kind of got to meditate on that and let it simmer and sit for a bit to understand how are you different, what's the unique set of tools and characteristics that you bring to the business and to a client that no one else does. And then the marketing execution has to turn on, that you have to deliver on that and communicate that and over and over and over. And I think there's a marketing rule that says someone has to hear about you or see you like 7 times before they make a decision to consider buying from you, right? So it's not just that you need to have a mission and a foundation and a purpose and a why, as you sometimes say, but you need to be able to communicate that over and over and over, but not in a way that you sound like a broken record and you're just hitting repeat on the same post every day or something like that, right? So it's got to be a new way on a very reoccurring basis and a consistent basis of delivering and driving home the fact that that is your mission and that you're delivering on it, and that someone should consider buying from you or setting up you as a brokerage to take care of their transportation opportunities.
I like that. So, what advice do you have with someone who wants to break into supply chain and be known?
Well,
You asked me similar question. So, what is your takeaway?
uh-huh. So, um, I think, man, it's a tough one because although I think maybe from an outside perspective, maybe looking at what I've been doing for about the past year or so, that I've been actively trying to grow and become something out there. It may look like it's very intentional and planned, and oh, he has a business plan written for this or something, right? But in reality, it's very much just like one day at a time. And I think that, as I just mentioned, I guess in my last answer, is I think the first step is being able to write down and articulate what your why is or what your mission statement is. And once you have that, and it's very robust and it's very holistic, and it doesn't pigeonhole you into one corner, into one small thing, right? It needs to be kind of like a big idea, like a goal that you may never achieve, but it's going to always push you to go keep working and improving. I think that's where it starts, is understanding what your why is, as much as that's over said these days, I think. But it's not that cliche, because once you can establish that, your purpose for being, then everything else gets so much easier, once you can have that.
I agree with you. So, how do you manage staying creative, connected, and consistent in an industry that moves 24/7?
Hmm. Well, it's a little bit like it's a little bit like a routine. So I live kind of by my calendar. So whatever is on my calendar, I will do it. So if I'm thinking about what do I need to be doing maybe on a reoccurring basis on Wednesdays, for example, every Wednesday I have a podcast episode come out, right? So I have a time block every week to make sure that I'm spending some time working on that every week, or for example, right? Or you probably have like reoccurring meetings. You put them on your calendar. Since they're already there, you do them, right? So I think that's the best thing is just kind of allocating or budgeting time for those for those opportunities to be consistent. The other sort of I guess advice there is the ability to schedule posts. If we're kind of getting into the technical, nitty gritty of this, is scheduling posts so that you don't have to be posting yourself every single day or whatever that might be, right? But one thing that I've found in using those is, and you're probably familiar as well, and a lot of folks are, is that when you use those and they're third party apps and they're connected to your Instagram account and your YouTube and your LinkedIn, all that sort of stuff, it doesn't tag. It doesn't have the ability to tag people, people or companies in your posts. It only really allows you to do hashtags. And so what I found is over some time, 6 9 months of trying that, I realized that those posts that are generated through a scheduling app or software are not as effective because you can't tag people. So I actually kind of backed off of that and went back to just posting directly on LinkedIn, so that it can properly tag folks, and include everybody. The other thing is maybe like a kind of a fun hack that I have is I'm very engaged in active with the universities here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and so I've been able to recruit a couple of marketing interns consistently for about the past year or so, and they come on and it's an experience for them, and I'm very bootstrap sort of focus, founders. So they're unpaid internships. But what it does is allow them to have some experience because they are a marketing major, to kind of play around and work in a marketing sort of in a business that's a real tangible thing. So it gives them real hands-on opportunities to kind of see what it's like to be a marketing person in a real sort of business setting. And it's a very low expectations for them. And so it helps me to have a consistent marketing product and communication out there without me having to do it all myself. So
Nice.
that's maybe one thing that I don't know if I've ever really told many people about. So yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I need to go university in South Carolina and find interns. I actually got few requests from people, students from supply chains that they wanting to be an intern, but
Uh-huh.
I never, did for marketing. That's amazing. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you see the future of supply chain social club? What gap were you seeing in traditional networking that inspired it? I know you talked a little bit about COVID and stuff, but can you please tell us more about the future and what are your goals?
Yeah, so I think that sometimes when you ask people, what is your goal for 5 years from now, right? Sometimes you can get this, where are you going to be 5 years from now type question. Um, and honestly, I don't 100% have the end game in mind just yet. I'm still kind of building out what exactly Supply Chain Social Club is, what it can be. But I want it to be sort of I call it like the virtual country club in the sky, where all of the supply chain sort of gets together virtually. And that looks like a couple of different things, right? It looks like the different series of events that we have today. We have a warehouse one, a transportation one, procurement one, a sales and marketing one. So it has like these regular meetings. I'm looking to maybe add one for founders and business owners to be able to come together and talk about our problems and opportunities and network. And other ways, maybe even use it for private events for companies that are looking to host private events for just their internal teams. So I'm again, it's maybe one day we'll host like kind of big virtual conferences on it, like what was held during COVID time when so many conferences and seminars had to all go virtual, even though it was hundreds or thousands of people. That would be like a very, very big goal. But for right now, I just kind of want to be able to leverage it as a way to connect people to each other. And so it's not the thing that pays the bills or anything like that. It's really a networking tool for me, and a bit of a branding and marketing tool as well.
I love it. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the freight operation? Because I know you're moving like LTL, sometimes over-dimensional, and you have seen it all. What kind of logistics challenges still gets you excited? Do you handle the operation or only the sales part?
Yeah, so I handle my specialty, I guess, of my team is oversized heavy haul loads, and so that's kind of yes. As a broker, I'm specifically an agent under SPI Logistics, and I have been for a little over 2 years now. And similar to yourself, I've taken that route because it allows me to be a little more streamlined and not have so many people, in my office, in my company, doing all the back office work, right? So that's one thing. What sort of gets me excited is the opportunity to bring more to the table for clients than just the brokerage piece for so all of the networking and the connections that I have in warehousing and in software and in procurement and everything are all things that I can bring to a client in addition to helping with their transportation, right? And so that's kind of what excites me is using any of these sort of levers to just get the conversation started. Sometimes it's offering and inviting someone to come on the podcast, right? Or finding or meeting someone or inviting them to a supply chain social club event. So there's so many sort of different hooks that I can use to try to get a conversation started. And at the end of the day, I'm just looking to be a supply chain resource for everyone, for students, for early career people, for business owners, for people that are shippers, for people that are brokers, for everyone. And so I'm just excited about everything, I guess, in logistics. And so transportation is just one of the tools that you need to operate a supply chain, right? You also need fulfillment, you also need procurement, you also need compliance and trade. So I like all of it, honestly. It's why my name is Supply Chainy, I think, right? And so, but transportation is the important link that connects all the nodes in supply chain. So I just like solving problems at the end of the day.
I love it. Actually, I was volunteering last week in a middle school
Hmm.
in Missouri, I think the school was, and there were 26 students. I was, sharing the importance of logistics, and I was explaining the students what are the positions that they can get without going to traditional school.
Hmm.
And you also love working with students. I am working with high school students because I think it is so important to give these kids right direction and change their mind in this traditional path that like going to university is the only
Yeah.
path to take, because that is the beauty of logistics, that we can get into it without even degree if we want to. So that's amazing what you are doing with students and giving opportunity for them to firsthand experience this industry, even if it is marketing. I'm sure they will learn also about logistics, and it will be better opportunity for them. That's amazing.
I think to just kind of like cap off that the point you just made is that at the root word of logistics is logic, and so they actually don't have courses on logic in school. I think that you can pick up, and if you have some good just common sense and logical spatial awareness and are
Hmm.
able to organize things, which those are just innate characteristics or skills that people are just born with oftentimes. And so if you kind of have those abilities, then logistics or transportation does not require a high degree or anything to accomplish.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nathan, last question. Until we start, I have a rapid fire questions for you too. But I was asked in your interview about AI. What is your takeaway about AI? How do you see the supply chain future and AI together?
I had someone on my podcast a couple of days ago who I think put it best, and he was talking about his own business and the AI that they're putting into their software. And he said, really, what it is a recommendation engine, and I think that is maybe the best way to put it. Is that AI at the end of the day, it needs to be a human that makes the final button and the final decision and uses the expertise and experience and nuance that we understand about the way business works and the world works. But similar to all the AI tools that we're all accustomed to using today, it's there to make recommendations and maybe do the first 80% of the work, right? But that last 20%, I think, is always going to need to be a human there, kind of just making sure that it made the right recommendation and then executing on that. So I think that's kind of where AI will be in supply chain is chief recommendation officer.
Mm-hmm, I like it. So now let me ask you some fun rapid fire questions. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'll do my best.
One tool or platform you cannot live without.
Canva,
Canva. I love it. Dream guest for your own podcast.
um, chief supply chain officer of REI.
Your favorite type of freight move and why?
Uh, really, really big ones because it's just more interesting.
Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee.
I like it. So, yes, you're drinking coffee now. I drinking water. That's my main to go drink. Actually, in the mornings. Thank you so much, Nathan, for dropping gems and bringing that high energy, high value vibe we all need more of in supply chain. And where can people find you and plug into everything you are building?
Yeah, so the website is just supplychainy.com. It's pretty easy, but the similar to yourself, the main place that people can find me is on LinkedIn. Nathan Cheney there, and also there's the Supply Chain Social Club. You'll find me at those events. Those are free for everybody to attend. We have one actually tonight. I guess this is live, right? So we have our Warehousing After Dark event tonight at 7 p.m. Central. It's open to everyone, and it's BYOB. You don't even have to wear shoes. So just have some fun and network with other people in the warehousing space.
I love it. I'm gonna try to join 7 p.m. Everyone join to the social club event tonight. And if you are not already following Nathan, please go ahead and do it now. This is the future of logistics and you heard it here first. And thank you so much for joining your bestie in freight and until next time, we will stay in touch.